Well, good evening, everyone. My name's Kirk. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Kirk.
And you kind of have an idea what you all are thinking. Not this clown again. Can't the committee that finds a speaker find someone else other than this guy? But it's always an honor and a privilege, especially to come to this group. Gosh, I'll never forget those days before I surrendered, and the meeting was downstairs, and Tom I, God bless him, he'd proudly stand up at the podium and say, wow, we not only have a meeting every Monday and Thursday, but on the other days of the week, we go into prisons and we go into the detoxes, and I was in that meeting for about 30 seconds, and I'm thinking to myself, those are the two places that I really do not want to go. I went out the back door, not to be seen again for a few years. And now here I stand and do have the privilege of when able, to go into the detox facilities and carry the message there. So my home group is the Keeping It Sober group. We meet in the Wilder building on Tuesdays and Saturdays at 7 p.m. I have a service position in that group. I have a service position in that building. And I think it's imperative for a guy like me to be not only attend, but to be a part of the group wherever I end up. And so I am plugged in those two regards. My sobriety date is December 27th of 2005. Seems like Debbie and I were talking this earlier, and it seems like yesterday that I was in a world of woe, but then it seems like a lifetime ago, and it is a different life, far better than I ever could have imagined. So, our stories disclose in a general way what I used to be like, what happened to me, and what I'm like now. And, there's always something that catches my eye, and I'm not going to read much from the book. It says, each individual describes the way he established his relationship with God, and we believe that it is only by fully disclosing ourselves and our problems that they will be persuaded to say, yes, I'm one of them too, I must have this thing. So, I'm old, so, my story is lengthy, and I drank alcoholically for 32 years, so, I have some vivid stories and remembrances of days gone by. And funny thought, I was thinking today, man, maybe I really wasn't that bad when I was out there. And then, when I say that from the podium, I see Steve Moore, and he knew or saw part of the act, the before act. And, if I were to say that I'm not that bad, I would hear some guffaws or some other words coming from that direction. So, yeah, I was bad, desperately ill. But, from the beginning, growing up, at the time I didn't think so, but I lived a charmed life. I didn't come from a rich family. I didn't come from a poor family. I had everything I needed, not everything I wanted. But I never would have had everything I wanted because I'm a materialistic, selfish, self-centered brat. Not a lot of that has changed, maybe a little bit. But, so before I even thought about taking a drink, I was restless, irritable, and discontent. Things in my world just weren't the way I wanted them. And I always had this feeling of dis-ease. Also, and my parents just loved, I have 4 brothers, and I'm the middle child, and sociologists, psychologists say the middle child is the problem child, and I certainly did nothing to dispel that theory. But they loved us to death. They did everything for us. They made a lot of sacrifices for us. That being said, they couldn't do enough for me to give me what I really thought I needed or wanted. And at the same time, even though I know I was loved, I just didn't feel worthy of it. For whatever reason, I felt I was in the family, but I was really not a part of it. For whatever reason, I felt less than, and this is long before, this is really, really young. And I really didn't realize the discomfort I was in until I first felt the effect of alcohol. And I was really pretty young, and I've shared this before. I know I was young because the night I drank that first beer, I was in my pajamas, and the pajamas had the footies in them. And I don't wear those pajamas today, so it was a long time ago. And my father, he's in his easy chair, and he said, "Kirk, will you go to the refrigerator and get me a beer?" I said, "Sure, Dad, if I can have one." And he just shakes his head and said, "Yeah, okay, but drink it in the kitchen and don't tell your mother." And so I got his, and I ran back to the kitchen, and I opened this sucker, and I just chugged it right down. I didn't get sick or anything, and almost immediately from the top of my head down to my toes, I felt this warm glow, this ease and comfort. And, I got thinking to myself, this is my solution. Life isn't that bad. I can go with this. And, I did not drink all day, every day from that point forward, far from it. I didn't drink again until high school. But in my mind, I knew that someday this alcohol, this elixir would come in handy for me. And it did. My goal in high school was to be popular, and I suffered miserably from low self-esteem. Alcohol gave me the courage, to do a lot of things that I normally wouldn't have done. Not only could I go to the dance, but I actually asked someone to dance with me, a girl, and it was amazing what alcohol did for me. I got sick from the get-go, hungover, every Saturday and Sunday morning. But I still look forward to the weekends because I knew that that was the routine. And looking back, it was so easy to turn it on and off. I realized during the week that I was expected to go to school. I had a job. I was expected to go to work. And I did all those things. So, certainly alcohol was no problem then, even though I drank alcoholically from the get-go. I blacked out the first time I really got drunk in high school. So, blackout drinker from the beginning, Anyway, comes time to, move on from high school and go to college because my two older brothers went to college. It was expected I was going to go, and so I just did what I was told, like it or not. I hated being told what to do, but I acquiesced because I had no other choice. But anyway, so my dad, he goes, "Kirk, well, what do you like to do?" I just said, "Well, I like hanging out at the golf course." He said, "Well, you may have a hard time finding a job or finding a career and hanging out at the golf course." And, my dad was always right, but I always tried to prove him wrong. So in this instance, I kind of did. I enrolled in a program at a university in Michigan where I grew up that was sanctioned by the PGA of America. I was on campus for 6 months. I went on an internship for 6 months, and man, I had the time of my life. All I did was hang out at the golf course. And my first internship was in Miami, Florida. I spent 6 months there in the winter in Miami, and what a way to grow up. Wow. At a public course, in a wide open town, way back when, cocaine was rampant. Bars were open until 4 in the morning in my neighborhood. There's highlight. There was the ponies ran one night, the dogs ran the next. I was living life large. I loved every minute of it, so those experiences were wonderful, and I found out an awful lot about. I'm pretty not a pure alcoholic. I dabbled in an awful lot of other substances, but I found out really early that every substance I tried had an adverse effect on my drinking. Cocaine made me drink too much to the point where I'd almost kill myself, literally. Pot made me stupid. I couldn't be my loquacious, witty self. So I didn't like doing that. I just liked to drink, and I did it every opportunity I could. I get through college and I do everything on time. So I did notice that I drank differently from my roommates in college. They were idiot savants as I was. But at the end of the night, they'd say, "Okay, I've had enough," and I'm like, "What do you mean you've had enough? There's still beer in that keg, or there's still some liquid in that tub of concoction stuff that we created." So I didn't stop either until everything was gone or that I passed out. Normally I passed out before everything was gone. But anyway, so I get out in the real world, and I realize I get a good job at a wonderful private club in southern Wisconsin. And I realized that drinking might be an issue. Now I'm out on my own, and so I set down 3 rules for myself. It's true. I wasn't going to drink on the job. I wasn't going to drink before 5 o'clock, and there was going to be one day a week that I didn't drink. I adhered pretty sternly to the first 2 for 2 years. That third one went out the window real quickly because I could not figure out what day it was that you don't drink on. None of them. I tried, and none of them worked. So, but the other 2, I didn't drink while I was on the job, and I didn't drink before 5 o'clock until the 3rd summer I was at this facility. I was really gung-ho on life up until this point. I was, moving up. I got all my professional accreditations. I was getting ready to move on to a job on my own. And I just felt like the people at this place didn't appreciate what I was doing for them. And I got a case of this stinks. And I just got this horrific attitude that I was really undervalued, underappreciated, and to the point where I had to break both of those other 2 rules. I said, screw it, I'm going to have a little cocktail before work starts, and, I deserve it because I'm doing all this for these people, and I'm getting nothing in return. And this led to me getting my first DUI. I crashed a car and ended up in the hospital, and had to spend a night in jail. And now I go from a disgruntled person to a really, really sick person. Actually, I not only hate my surroundings, but now I hate myself. And my only solution to that was to drink more. And I also developed another escape mechanism. I started to change geographically. They wanted me to come back another summer up there. I said, no, I'm out of here. And I moved down here, and it's when I moved down here that I know I crossed the line of no return, and not in terms of drinking, but in terms of my attitude. I was offered 2 jobs when I got here. One was in Pinehurst at a really big club, really sweet job, wonderful opportunity. The other job was working for a buddy of mine in Southern Pines. He's a good friend of mine, so he's kind of like me, if you know what I mean. All I had to do was show up to work. There was beer in the fridge. You could drink it, on the job. And of course, I chose the second job. I went to work for my buddy, and I knew I was doing the wrong thing. And I knew at that point that I no longer fought escape through alcohol, but I embraced it. Alcohol became my go-to. Mad, sad, happy, glad, regardless of what was going on in my life. Alcohol was there, and it enabled me to cope with my inability to deal with life as it presented itself to me. And I stayed there at that job for a couple years, and it was the most miserable couple years of my life because I knew I was in the wrong place. I knew I was doing the wrong thing. I couldn't drink enough to quell the disillusionment and the disgrace that I was feeling. Finally, my buddy said, you're not doing yourself any good, or me, for that matter. Why don't you move on? And I did. So, I started doing the north-south thing. I went to Chicago for the summer, Florida for the winter. Went back to Wisconsin, a different club for the summer. Got my second DUI up there, and now I'm really, really down on myself. Ended up back in Florida for the next season down there, and I'm working at Disney World of all places. Here I am. I'm working at the happiest place on earth, and I might be the most miserable person on the planet. God, and God, what the pressure I was under. To go to work, you see it. I go down the wardrobe and get what I'm supposed to wear, and here's someone putting on a goofy suit, and I'm like, man. How can I do this? I'm trying to act sober, and I'm just. It got to be too much. One day, I just called work and I said I can't do this anymore, and they said, "Oh, you can't come in today." I said, "No, I quit." And it was a great plan. My plan was to stay home and just drink all day. However, I was kind of short on funds, and my buddies expected me to pay rent, and I didn't have money for rent, so the plan didn't last very long. So I called the safety net. I called Mom. I said, "Mom, I need money for rent," and they came through. Mom came through. An envelope came the next week, and I'm like, "Yes, Mom." I thought it was a check or an envelope full of cash, and what it was is a one-way plane ticket home. And I'm like, well, this can't be good, and it wasn't. They knew what was going on. My permanent address was their address, and all the legal notices from wherever I were sent home. I was having some medical issues when I was in Florida. I was in the emergency room a lot. And problems vomiting blood or whatever. So all those records were being sent home. So they knew Kirk was floundering, and so I get home, and their idea was for me to go to a 28-day treatment facility, and so I went. And at that point in my life, I knew absolutely, positively nothing about alcoholism or recovery or anything like that. My misconception of an alcoholic was some poor, destitute guy drinking cheap wine out of a paper bag. He lives in a cardboard box in an alley, and that wasn't me. But I learned differently at this facility, and I learned an awful lot there about myself. Probably the biggest thing I learned is that my time there, even though it helped prolong my life and probably saved my life in the long run, it got me. I knew for a fact that I would drink again when I left that facility. So I used it as a time out, is what I did. And I didn't drink for over a year. I ended up in Myrtle Beach and had a nice job at a little place on the ocean, and life was wonderful. But even in this idyllic setting, something wasn't quite right there, and so I left there and went to Arizona for the winter. And Arizona in the winter doesn't suck. I was playing a lot of golf. I was giving a lot of lessons. I was doing what Kirk wanted to do, and had a really good gig there. Something wasn't quite right in Arizona, and what I know now is what wasn't right was me. The week before I was going to move back from Arizona to here, I decided I had to get out of Arizona. I'm out on a date with this girl, and she orders a glass of wine with dinner, and she just looked at me and said, "Aren't you going to have a glass of wine?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And that's the first drink I took since being into that treatment facility, and that's how much of a persuasion I needed. And it was on from there, And alcohol, it's a progressive disease, and the progression showed really readily in me. I got in my car in Tucson. I started out with these wine coolers, and I don't know why wine. I think wine coolers because I thought that's not even like drinking, And I had never had one before, and I get on I-10 and I'm cruising. I open one of those guys, and I chug it, and I'm thinking, I know why I've never had a wine cooler before, because these are awful. So I get off the next exit and get some beer, and this is much better. And going through New Mexico, I realized that I'm in a hurry to get back to Pinehurst, and I'm having to stop to go to the bathroom too often because of this beer. So I get across the Texas line, I find the liquor store, get a bottle of vodka and a 16-ounce Mountain Dew, and now I'm road tripping. Vodka is my drink of choice, and I cruised on the rest of the way across the country. And so I went from not drinking to my drink of choice in, a few hundred miles, almost literally. And I get here, and I'm a functional alcoholic. I have a job, but I'm drinking all day. I meet a girl, and ends up we get engaged, and so I'm going to ask this girl's father, for his daughter's hand, and he goes, "Yes, I'd love that, on one condition." I said, "What's that, bud?" He said, "You stop drinking." I said, "Okay," and I did. So I'm not drinking, but there's no recovery whatsoever. There's no meetings. There's no anything. It's just put the plug in the jug and let's call it good. Life is looking, really good. Even by just not drinking and not doing anything in terms of recovery, life got really, really good on the outside. 2 months, though, before we're going to get married, she decides it's not a good idea. And in hindsight, it wasn't. That marriage would have been a disaster for one real good reason, me. But even so, I was devastated at the time. And, because I thought I loved that girl, and this is what I really wanted. This was going to fulfill my life. And, there's only one way for this alcoholic to deal with pain of that magnitude, and that's to drink, and to drink heavily, and to move. So I put the the full court press on trying to find a new job, and during the course of that summer, the hits came. 1993 was not my best year. That summer, my father died. God bless him. And, the hardest part of that was I had to go home for a week and be there for my mom and try and be sober. And I honestly can't say that I did not drink that at all that week. Like late at night when I was in my hotel room, I had a pint of vodka, and I just slammed that sucker, and because that's the only way I could cope with all that was transpiring in my life. And but I made it through the week, and I was there for my mother when I got back here, and it was on. And I got a job up in Rhode Island, and wow, what a great job it was. I don't know how I found all these jobs. I know an awful lot of people is how, and for whatever reason, they trusted me to do a good job. And I made it through that year. I drank every day on the job, every day. And, I'm not proud of that, but it's the truth. And at the end of the year, the owner of the facility goes, Kirk, man, you did a wonderful job for us this year. You made me a lot of money. The members love you. I love you. We want you to come back. And I'm like, really? After that performance, you want me to come back? He said, yes, we want you to come back on one condition. And I said, what's that? He said, you can't drink on the job next year. And I said, okay. And he said, okay, what? I said, well, I can't do that job sober. I'm not coming back. and I didn't. So it started about a 3-year cycle where Kirk was self-employed, which in AA parlance means I was unemployable. I had a couple gigs. Oh, my God. I had this one opportunity. It was a week-long school in Texas. A buddy of mine worked at this 4-star resort in Dallas and said, come on down and teach for a week with this legend of golf. And I did, and man, what a fiasco. I won't, I'm not going to do a fifth step from up here, so it didn't go well. Anyway, so yeah, I go back to Rhode Island, and I get another DUI. And this one was of the 4 that I got, this was the most painful because I was unemployed. I was living in my car, and when I got this DUI, I lost my license, the ability to drive, so I lost the car, which was my apartment. So now I'm homeless up there, and wow, man, it's not easy being me. My friends bailed me out, and I got a place to stay, and I got a job somehow or another, but I continued to drink, and it went on for another year that way. End up in the hospital. I needed to have surgery on my neck, and when I got out of the hospital, I had an intervention from ambush, whatever you want to call it, from my 4 best friends. They said, look, Kirk, you're killing yourself, and we can't stand to watch anymore. Why don't you go back to AA? And I did, and I didn't drink again for 2 years. I went to AA. I went to a lot of meetings. I attended Alcoholics Anonymous. I was not an active part of it. I was a half-stepper. I admitted that I was powerless over alcohol. You couldn't tell me I couldn't manage my own life. I got it. I got this. And that's as far as I went with the steps. So again, on the outside, everything is better. On the inside, I'm deteriorating, and I'm kind of waiting for the next shoe to fall. And it did after a couple years. I should say that during that 2 years of not drinking, I was under the care of my personal physician, and he made sure that I had an unlimited supply of either Xanax or Percocet or some other opiate to deal with the pain from that surgery I had. So I wasn't clean by any means, and that stuff took the edge off just enough for me to cope and not to totally lose it. But after 2 years, one of those people that cared enough about me to intervene died, and something inside me said, "That's it. Screw it. I'm done. I'm out of here." I quit my job, moved down here, and was drunk in a week. And then it was on. That last drink lasted until my sobriety date of December 27, 2005. So it was about a 5-year run that was, wow, the depth of despair, that incomprehensible demoralization, everything the book talks about, everything that you've experienced, it was on. But I just didn't want to quit. So that's what it was like. What happened is the most perplexing thing, and I still don't understand how it happened, but it was Christmas of 2005, and I am homeless. Someone felt sorry for me. They let me stay on their couch Christmas Day and Christmas night, and we're having my last big bash. I didn't know it was my last big bash. I would have done better than what I did. We were drinking this fortified Mad Dog and this Steel Reserve beer. It's 8.1% alcohol, high gravity or something. And we're having a large time, and all of a sudden my buddy hands me the phone. This is Christmas night. My buddy hands me the phone, and it's not my phone. I hadn't had a phone in 2 years. And I didn't know anyone knew where I was. And who's on the phone? My mother. And I'm like, oh, girl. And she goes, "Merry Christmas, Kirk." Yeah, "Merry Christmas, Mom. Sorry I didn't call." But anyway, she said, bottom line, here's the thing. You've got 2 options. Your brother's willing to drive down tomorrow, pick you up, bring you back home. You can stay with me. You stop drinking, you go to a meeting every day, and you do it right this time. Or, I want nothing else to do with you. And this is from a woman that just about loved me to death. And I don't know. I had no desire to stop, but at that point I said, "Okay, I'll come home." And I did. And my brother came and got me, and it was the start of this new life. And early sobriety for me was not easy, just because I quit drinking and had a place to stay. I was safe and everything. Everything was wonderful. Wrong. My God, there's a reason I drank the way I did. All the guilt, all the shame, all the remorse, the fear, the bewilderment, the terror, the frustration, Gosh, I just felt awful, and I was stark raving sober, but I went to a meeting every day, and finally a man, old timer, picked me up one day and said, "You seem to be pretty earnest about this recovery thing. I'm going to be your sponsor," because he knew I didn't know to ask him to be my sponsor. And so that started, a journey with another man who had been there and done that. And, he wasn't a big book thumper by any means, but he had a way of going through the steps so subtly. The second step, we were at breakfast one morning, and out of the blue, he just looks at me and said, "Do you pray?" And I'm looking at him like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? And I didn't say anything, and he looked at me and said, "I'll take that as a no." He said, "You better start." And I said, "Okay, Ron, here's the thing. I was an altar boy when I was in 6th grade. I recited the prayers in Latin. I didn't know what they meant. If they would have been in English, I wouldn't have known, what I was saying. I just spit it out by rote. And I said, that's the last time I prayed. I wouldn't know how to pray or what to pray for." And he just said, "Did you have a desire to drink today?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, that's a gift." He said, "You go home tonight, get on your knees and say, 'Thank you, God, for removing the obsession to drink.' And tomorrow morning you get up and ask him to do it for one more day." And I've done that every day since. So my prayers over the last 15 years have gotten a little bit more comprehensive than that, but I still ask for that every day, and it's granted. And this is coming from a guy that, the obsession to drink was strong with me. If I wasn't drinking or drunk, all I could think about is where that next drink came from. And until I got it, that obsession didn't leave. And so, it came time to do my 4th step, and my sponsors he arranged for coincidentally, for there to be a 4-step workshop. I was still up in Michigan, and so I went to that, and I got this outline, and I'm going through it, and gosh, it was perfect for me. It really was. I just have to share this. In the resentment portion of my inventories, the outline said, now write down your biggest resentment, and then just go off on this person or institution or whatever. Be honest about why it's really bothering you. And I did. I wrote a lot about why this guy really ruined my life. And I'm going off, and then I'm answer the next couple questions, and then column E is the one that got me. And it asks, all right, now forget about what that other guy did. What was your part in all that? I'm like, wait, well, no, time out. It was that guy. It was his fault. And all of a sudden, the light came on, and it's like, oh, I played a part in this too. And for the first time in my life, I objectively looked at my behavior, my action, what I contributed to the problem. And so the next resentment I wrote wasn't any fun because I knew I'd have to get to column E again and look at my part. So, but it was that was my aha moment in recovery. And up until that point, I just did everything my sponsor did because he told me to do this, and I took it at face value. I couldn't stand the way I felt, and I had no other solutions. And so I did what he did, and he'd said to do. And so I got everything down on paper, and now I've got to spit this thing out because I can't wait. I've got to dump this. It's name it, claim it, and dump it. And it was time to dump it. And I moved back down here, and I have a new sponsor, and he's kind of slow playing me on the 5th step. And I'm like, John, come on, I can't stand this. And so I finally track him down, and being the good alcoholic that I am, I've got 2 lists. One that I'm going to share, and one that I probably am going to keep to myself. But again, good sponsorship. It's invaluable. What does he do? He shares something from his 5th step with me, and it just blew me away. It's like, really, dude, I wouldn't have told anyone ever what you just told me. So it got me thinking that, well, maybe I better go to list B first. And so I dumped it, and I went back and reviewed those first 5 steps like it talks about it in the book. And did I leave anything out? Because this is important, now it's go time, the relief I felt, my God, like the weight of the world was lifted off of me. And figuratively, almost literally, it was. Now it's time to go forward. And steps 6 and 7, they're really short in the book. But the 7-step prayer really struck home with me in that, it talks about, remove those things which are objectionable to our usefulness to God and our fellows. And I'm like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to be? I'm supposed to be useful to God and my fellows? Oh my God, I've never done that before. So, again, an eye-opener as to what to expect. And, my sponsor very coyly said, it's pretty hard to face the world until you do these amends. If you're hiding from all these people, it's pretty hard to go out and help them. So it was time to get into the 9th step. And, to this day, there are some amends that I have not made directly because over the course of my career, I moved about 30 times from Rhode Island to Arizona to Milwaukee to Miami, and all points in between. I can't physically make face-to-face amends with those people, but I am willing to do that if the opportunity presents itself. But that being said, any one given day, I feel free and clean because because of the willingness to make the ones I haven't, and for having made the ones that I have. So, again, what a wonderful therapeutic step the 9th is. I can say that now because I've really got through it. So, 10, 11, and 12 are the, now we got to continue. Continue to take personal inventory, continue to practice these principles in all our affairs. Growing more spiritually. I've, for a long time, I went to the 11th step meeting at the Wilder Building on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock, and because I thought that's where I would get it. For whatever reason, it didn't come to me. I didn't feel like I was progressing as quickly as I should have. But, like it says in the appendix on spiritual experience, for this guy, it's a gradual thing. And it was of the educational variety, and I learned to be more spiritual, not by sitting by myself in a room, but at a meeting, watching everyone else. I mean, watching you guys, I see so far because I stand on the shoulders of giants, and that's the truth. My sponsor's past sponsor, Mitch, used to say, I'd rather see a sermon than hear it, and so it's, for me, being spiritual is more about action than about any feeling or so on a daily basis, one of the prayers that I start with every morning is that I ask, that I be calm and not to react to negative or positive things that are said to me. And, sometimes that lasts until the first stoplight I get to. Other days I can make it pretty far without blowing up over the most simple little thing. So I don't know that anyone sees any progress. I don't know that I see any progress, but I know that I'm going in the right direction. And the 12th step, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. The only reason I have had this spiritual awakening is because I have taken these steps, and I try and practice these principles in all of our affairs. And that's what it's all about today. I've got a couple new sponsees in the last few months, and one has a lot longer recovery than I do, and one is, well, one day he's going to make a fine member of Alcoholics Anonymous. But things happen. I didn't go searching, and that's my bad. I didn't go searching for these people. They were set in my path. Steve shared with us that soon we may be going back into the detox facility, and I'm blessed to be a part of that team that carries the message in there. Been doing that for almost 10 years. That's hard to believe. But anyway, I'd like to, again, I don't want to go too long because I'm old and it's already past my bedtime. Thank you again, David, for having me. I was just thinking about something that Maya Angelou says. She said, people will forget what you've said, they'll forget what you've done, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I hope I've felt that if you're struggling at all, that there is hope for anyone. And even if you're here a long time, that there's still work to be done. So thank you. God bless you.